everyone, welcome in a new Indie Dev Talk with developers. I hold monthly interviews with indie developers all over the world because I'm very curious how their games became a success and what they have learned from the journey. Last month we found out with Jeroen Jansen that stopping can also be a very interesting mechanic. If you haven't seen it, please check it out later on as well. And this time we are going to interview Erik, who is a solo developer who made an RTS game for people that don't really have the time to play games, but still like to enjoy. Well, Erik, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello, my name's Erik, and as you said, I'm a solo developer who created Kainga, Seeds of Civilization, roguelite village builder, as I like to say.
Okay, wait, I first wanted to say I did some mini research. Is it based on Kainga on New Zealand, the kind of a settlement?
No, it's just a coincidence, actually. Yeah, I think that one has like a macron, which is like a line over the A.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told by some New Zealanders that the way that I spell Kainga without that line actually means leftovers. So, which is fine. For the name, I just wanted a powerful sounding 2-syllable name that was unique.
Oh, that's interesting because I was like, oh, whoa, this is so accurate because Kainga in New Zealand also has like different ethnicities because your span, you have different ethnicities like white, black, brown. It was like, oh wait, also Wikipedia tells me this information as well. But that's by total coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, I found it as well as I was creating it. But I think it's a happy coincidence.
I think it's a great coincidence. So where was it really inspired by then?
The true inspiration, I guess, is from an old game called Populous the Beginning. It was a game from 1998, I think. So I played it as a kid, kind of this goofy game where you're a shaman who has this magical power and you lead a tribe. It was my favorite game as a kid, and it had these 2D characters in a 3D world. So I borrowed that because I think it looks cool. It looks unique. I kind of built on top of that and decided I wanted to go further and create a game where you could develop a culture as you go. And every time you played, it would develop a new different culture, but not randomly. There would be like reasons for it. So you would choose, oh, I'm going to go with this house type because I'm in a jungle. So there's going to be a lot of rain and I need rain protection, things like that.
Yeah, but every scenario, basically you re-choose like what kind of buildings make sense.
Yeah, what kind of technology makes sense. And then you kind of become a civilization that uses that technology or you fail doing it, which is common as well.
I think that I was a bit not sure about like you can also keep some technology, but like I thought, well, okay, I'm sometimes a meta player, so I thought, okay, so if I just keep the barracks, I can always create a barrack, but that was not meant to be.
You can always find, not always actually, you're right. So this is part of the roguelite aspect where you kind of have this progression between runs. So the idea was that you could remember one technology, actually up to 3 eventually, if you can unlock them. And then there's a guarantee that if you find the same type of technology inspiration in the world, then you can get that technology again.
Sometimes you're spammed like literally next to the enemy. That's always so frightening though.
But sometimes they're your friends.
Yes, when I noticed that I'm just literally like, almost 2 blocks away from the enemy, if it's not like a change on level, right? I'm like, okay, restart. To be honest.
Yeah, I think this is something I'm actually working on at the moment, which is balancing. I think my expectations of balancing and what most players expect is different, especially for city builders, because a lot of people like to build cities and kind of take their time. But this game is not really like that. So I think it kind of hits people the wrong way sometimes.
Yeah, it's very fast. And it's like sometimes you're like, oh, I will do this and that. And then you're like, oh, but...
Yeah, and the game kind of kicks you out eventually because there's like an anti-system. It raises the intensity of events over time. The longer you stay, the more serious the events get. And then eventually, you're going to win or lose, which is a shock to a lot of people. Like I said, people who like city builders kind of come in expecting that they can just build a beautiful city and then
it will be crushed by
then it gets crushed or burned.
I even have one scenario which was kind of almost funny. I built just a few houses and then suddenly the water level rised. I was like, oh wait, oh yeah, wait, this is not the start of a level.
Right. Yeah.
Just a question for myself, like, what do you have with snails?
I wanted the creatures to be really unexpected because everything else is kind of down to earth. So I had these giant snails. They were the first creature I added that spit acid and they melt people. And I wanted that encounter because I know every player when they play Kainga for the first time, they're like, oh, snails. And then they go over and try to interact with them and then immediately get killed. And I think that's great. Just kind of like, oh, wow, okay, this world is not what I expected.
It's sometimes random because sometimes like a random big insect is just walking in my city and it's doing nothing. And then just someone walks almost next to a snail and the snail is like So is it like random which animal attacks you, or how is that?
It's not random, but it's kind of like you have to learn from experience, I guess. The idea was that you can kind of grow with your knowledge of the game. Basically, you're expected to lose the first couple times and then you realize, okay, snails you got to stay away from. The walker, he's friendly until you attack him. The enemy villages can be dealt with this way. Like rain is bad for these reasons, and then you kind of learn the systems of the game and then it becomes easier.
Yeah.
So I get people who are new to the game saying the game is way too hard, and I get people who play the game a lot saying the game is way too easy. So there's like a learning curve, I guess. It's kind of a different experience.
Yeah, that sounds like balancing. Like at the start it should be maybe easier and then later on it should be hard. Yeah, also one time that it was just a random, I don't know which kind of animals it are, where just a nest was just literally spawned next to my city and they killed all my people. That was also such a nice random event.
Yeah. I think I know, in the desert probably.
Yeah, in the desert. I was like, wait, it went all so well. And then I thought, oh, wait, the enemy is attacking. No, not the enemy is attacking. The animals are attacking.
Yeah. And each map has different challenges as well. So there's 8 different maps. Desert is obviously big and flat. There's no transportation problems at all. But then other ones, you have elevation you have to get up on, or like rivers you have to cross, or islands, or snow to deal with, or other things like that. So I try to make every map as diverse as possible.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. You have different challenges. So, like in the desert, you of course, the wood is almost non-existing.
Yeah.
And also, like stone is also basically non-existing. So you need to think about other stuff.
Yeah, and if you choose wood houses in the desert, then you're kind of out of luck, or you have to be really clever.
So you have like the thinker, right? And he needs to walk to something and then he kind of like, explore it. But when he's kind of randomly attacked, he never can heal himself, or that's what I felt.
Yeah, so this is another unique part of the game, which is the thinker, who's the leader of the village. And if they get killed, then you lose the game. So they have to be protected at all costs. But there's a reason, like you can't just keep them at home, like you said, because they have to go out and find sources of inspiration, which will give you technology, which help you grow. So that kind of pushes you to put them out into danger. And then, like you said, they get attacked. They're defenseless usually, so you have to protect them with other units. Can get healed when you host festivals. So any festival, they'll heal at that time. And the festivals are like a unique bonus for each thinker that can grant different abilities or different resources to try to guide the player in a certain play style. That starting thinker, he's there to introduce you to the game. Like in the beginning, you start with everything you need. You have wood for the campfire, you have food for the people, and then the festivals are there to help you along. Other thinkers are a little bit more focused on different things like advanced production or like combat units. There's one thinker that's focused around ghosts.
And also like with the enemy, if you kill their thinker, their society collapse as well, right?
Yeah, their society collapses, but they're not really dead in a way because they go back to the hub world, which is called the Skyloft. They're actually friends there. They chat with each other. They give each other a hard time. So after the game, if you go back up, then they'll say, oh, you got me this time, I'll get you next time, kind of thing.
Oh, that's the people that randomly, sorry, maybe a bit aggressive, but random people were just as I Skyloft, I was like, okay, can I now choose you to play? But that was not the case yet. So
you have to unlock them. And then at some point there's 8 of them as well, and they'll meet you down in the world or up in the Skyloft and give you advice.
Okay, so you made this game by yourself, right? I just think you put a lot of yourself in this game. So what is this game telling about Erik?
Yeah, I did. It's and it was a long story to create this game. because I'm not a programmer by education or an artist. I just started and then continued for years, and then eventually found a publisher, and then I went full-time to work on this for the past 2 years full-time until now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how did you find a publisher?
Posting GIFs on Twitter.
Oh, that's how it works. Okay.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's how it worked for me. But I think there was a turning point where the game was mechanically all right, but it still looked terrible. And then I just spent like a couple months focusing on visuals, post-processing and things like that. And then after that point, then I started posting online and got a lot better feedback just because the creatures are so interesting. The characters kind of look unique, 2D characters in a 3D world. Going through that like art pass, I guess, really helped. I was actually just looking at old images today, and man, it does look pretty terrible, but but I guess, I mean, every time I look at it, I think it looks better and better.
Yeah, it really has its own vibe. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Where did you get your inspiration from?
I chose a lot of decisions that would allow me to iterate quickly. For example, the animations are only 4 frames long, because if there's 20 different characters and you have to draw them in 8 different directions, then, you know, I've drawn 7,000 frames of animation. So I wanted to make it as compact as possible to allow for that diversity. And the buildings are kind of a low poly architectural design. Everything else is hand drawn really simply, and I think it comes across well enough.
Yeah, and you have like the first thing I thought that you have like one layer of technology, so that you can kind of need to like be aware. But then later on, I got like even more technology. So how many technology can you have at max?
There's over 300, which includes like houses, it includes combat buildings, boats, balloons, things like that, and then advanced production, so you can turn resources into other resources. And there's also synergies, so if you get 2 specific technologies, then you get a unique one from that.
Yeah,
so there's a lot.
I noticed that. Yeah, like if you have a patty and a stone, then you have a stone patty, for example. Yeah, I think we always say as a teacher, like be aware of feature creep, but I think you just enhanced your feature creep, or did a lot of things not in the game that you still wanted to have in the game? Yeah,
of course. There are a lot of things I cut as well. I did set a very ambitious roadmap for myself with a lot of features, and I stuck to it. These are the things I promised, so I'm going to do them. And I did them all, but the amount of content is difficult. For other game developers, I think everyone always tells you to make something simple because it's easier to test and it's easier to find problems. And there's so many interacting systems in Kainga that problems come up all the time. Like, you know, if you have a fire system and a snow system, and then you have boats, and then like giant snails with houses on top of them battling with the boats, then, you know, all kinds of different situations come up. I, as a game developer, can't expect. That's kind of the downside to the content creep. But I did have a lot of features that I wanted to put in, like nomadic cities and things like that never made it in. That was a darling that you killed, basically. Yeah, and I think I'm trying to bring it back, but we'll see. No promises yet. The great thing about finishing the roadmap is now I don't have the promises, so I'm kind of have this freedom to do whatever I want and keep it a surprise as well, which is kind of fun. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, because you're like your publisher and you have that like arrangement that you still keep working on the game, or like? No, I guess the agreement is up until the launch period. So everything in the roadmap was kind of that's what the agreement included. I don't have an obligation to continue, but I will because I enjoy it. There's more to be done for me. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, I guess. So I want to see things through to the end. Let's be honest. When you open Steam, and there are like a lot of people that notice there's a lot of potential in it, but like some things of the game, like for example the RNG or whatsoever, are a bit. The AI of the enemy is a bit predictable or unpredictable in that kind of way. Yeah, so there's AI, there's balancing, like we talked about, navigation issues I want to kind of polish up. As any game developer knows, or solo developer, or I guess any company really, like when you're ready to hit the launch button, you think everything is done. Yes. And then as soon as you do, then 1,000 people come back and say, look, this is broken, this is wrong. It's like, oh my goodness, how did we miss that? I spent a lot of time fixing those things after launch. Some of the deeper things I'm working on at the moment to improve the long-term gameplay. Because like you said, a lot of people say there's potential. People can really see the magic, which is kind of what I'm most proud of, is that I made something that's unique or that's different and interesting. I would be upset if I created a game and launched it and then it was okay, you know?
Yeah, the people were like,
boring.
oh, the next, I don't know, the next Frostpunk or whatsoever, that's also do something with environmental issues, but you do it in a different way.
Yeah. So I'm happy about that.
You traveled a lot, right? And did you get from there also the inspiration of it, or like how?
Yeah, absolutely.
How's the connection?
So I've traveled a lot. Like you said, I don't know how up to date my LinkedIn is, but I've traveled to dozens of countries. I lived in 8 different countries. I was born in the US, including Central South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, India, so all over. And so, yeah, a lot of the architectural inspiration comes from different countries, but a lot of it was kind of a curiosity as to like, why do the ancient cultures in Morocco build differently from in India? It has to do with environmental reasons and this and that, and, wealth and things like that. So I was kind of interested to bring those into Kainga, but not tell anyone like, oh, this is an educational game, because it's not really. But
no, like the stones in soup, so you don't fly away.
Yeah. There's a lot of made up stuff as well. But I kind of wanted people to figure out, and this is why I need to build mud buildings in the desert, is because what it's good for, and it protects against the proper environmental elements and things like that. So kind of accidental learning. But yeah, it is inspired from cultures and architecture all over the world. But I tried not to be too specific either. Yeah. So none of them, it's not saying like, oh, this is a Japanese torii gate, or this is a Native American totem pole. There's none of those things. They're kind of ambiguous.
Yeah, they're just inspired by, basically.
Yeah, and even the thinkers, he's just a mix of cultures. He has Indian turban and Japanese, the wooden sandals, and
yeah, it's kind of a mix, and I guess that other thinkers will also like kind of be mixed.
Well, they get weirder too. Like they get very weird.
Okay.
I don't know how far you got, but some of them, like there's one that's comprised of smoke. He has no body, and his body's inside of a jar. You have to carry this jar around. For me, not having game development experience actually helped the game develop in a unique way, because I wasn't set into those rules, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Of like, games should be like this, or these rules, these things have to be this way. I kind of just created it the way I wanted to create it, and then thought about what is the consequence of adding this or taking this away, and then develop the game that way to try to push the player into the experience that I wanted them to experience.
Okay, so you think that it helps you to come from a different discipline, basically?
Yeah, I think so. Well, maybe not. I don't know. But from my point of view,
yeah.
I mean, some things were definitely harder, like figuring out how game development actually works and how the game engines work and things like that.
It's very challenging to start with, Unreal, as someone who has no experience in game development.
Well, I wasn't sure, so I just picked one randomly. I knew I wanted to make a 3D game, so for me it was Unreal or Unity, and I think at the time Unreal was free and Unity wasn't when I started.
Oh, you started that long time ago. Whoa.
Yeah, when I first opened one of them. So I was like, okay, I'll just do Unreal because it's free and I don't know if I'm going to take it seriously or not. So then I just stuck with it, and I'm happy with that choice. I think I made the right choice there. Although I don't think it matters for people wondering which engine to go for. It's all about the way you use it.
Yeah, for sure. Also, and your game is at least 7 years old then.
It might have started at that time, but I didn't work on it seriously for a while. And then it was 2 years where I worked on it in the afternoons and weekends, and then 2 years full time.
How do you stay motivated when it takes so long to finish something?
It's a good question, and I don't really know the answer. Because it's such a long time. You can build your own house in that time. I think it's just about persistence and dedication to seeing it through to the end. I think it's really easy to start something. And actually, to be honest, the middle is the easiest part, because it's just where you're adding things and it's fun. You're like, oh, let's add this, let's add that. Oh, we need some fish, why not? Butterflies, let's do it. The end is the most difficult part, because you have to clean up everything that you left around, or finish everything that you left 90% done.
Yeah, I think you also add a lot of humor in the game.
I did, yeah. I think that helps with bugs, to be honest, because if the game is not taking itself seriously,
Yes.
then things can go wrong. Like if somebody, if the physics kind of mess up and somebody flies off into the water, it's like, oh, okay, that's just how the game is, I guess, or that's how the world is. Or if something random happens, like, if you have a fire in your town and there's snails nearby, the snails come and put out the fire, and then they get into combat with the people, and then you're like, oh, this is, the game is not trying to be so strict, then it's kind of, it allows for a little bit more fun of creativity.
Nice. So another trick is when there is fire, you will do like the festival of like calling the snake, and then the snake is going to help you with the fire. Is that
they put out fires? Yeah. So I tried to make every creature interact with the environment. So snails put out the fires. I don't know if you saw the birds, the flying bird. They create fires. The walkers eat trees, and they all interact with the environment and each other in unique ways.
That's why there are no walkers at the desert.
There can be, but usually they wander off into the sands. Or it's rarer. So there's like % chances, of course, for everything to spawn.
Also, I noticed with the spawning, there is very clear, try to search for new technology, and it's very clear where the boundaries are because there is nothing spawned. Was that like a choice by design, or is it like, because most of RTS games, when you go too far to the right or whatsoever, it stops, right? Your movement stops, but you can just keep on scrolling to the desert.
You can go pretty far, yeah. It's just completely flat, right? Let's just try to, early in development, it would just kind of end, and then it would be nothing, kind of like how it is in Age of Empires. And I just didn't like it. It looks unfinished. So I try to do that endless desert and keep it super boring so that nobody would try to go out there. And keep all the interesting stuff in the middle, so that
works. Okay, yes.
And the other maps have water, which is the same, or something like that.
Yeah, and you always have like the thing you need to explore. I think you kind of did it with a purpose, right? You need to explore because you can do a bit with your scroll wheel, but you cannot zoom out to see all technologies in the map, right?
Yeah, you kind of have to look around left and right to try to find them. I really like that mechanic of the technologies, because actually originally there was a technology tree, like most city builders, where you get this one and then you get this one. And I just thought that was not genuine, because like Civilization, for example, has a really strict technology tree. You have to get this one specifically before that one, and everyone goes through the same tree. And I thought that's not how cultures grow.
Yes.
Some cultures never get gunpowder and some do. So I tried to.
Yeah, it's very random, and it's like you really feel, I need to go there, and then you kind of you really are focused on the technologies. But and with other RTS, it's mostly I need this in this order, and that's the best build. But there is basically not the best build, because sometimes you see there's a technology on a top, and you're like, I need to go to a kind of a bridge icon technology. But then you're wondering, do I really get like the one that I can still, because you have different bridges, right? You have the bridges that you can climb on the wall, but you also have just flat or bridges. So it's still kind of the gambling of you get the right technology or not.
Right, it's kind of taking advantage of what's offered. You don't get the perfect choices every time. And you kind of have to take advantage of what you can. And sometimes you get like a runaway success and it's flying and everything's easy. Sometimes you really struggle.
If you have a lot of karma, you can re-roll as well. So
yeah.
Did it came later, or was that really something that you were like, yes, this is something that should be in the game?
It came pretty soon after that 3-card system. It just became really clear that sometimes you don't need any of the 3 that were given. For example, if they're all boats and you really don't need a boat, there needs to be some sort of system. So I created the one where you can swap it for a passive ability. And then that was kind of like, well, sometimes I still need that bridge. I don't want a passive, and I don't want the boats. So then I added the reroll. Plus, it's a good way to spend your karma if you're really looking for something specific.
Yeah, I'm just figuring out what to spend the karma the most on, because here in the Skyloft you can also buy new stuff with your karma. It seems it's a very valuable or currency in the game.
Yeah, so there's about 200 technologies to unlock in the Skyloft.
But when you have more technologies, it's harder to get the technologies that you want.
Yes. And the technologies that you unlock get weirder and weirder the more you unlock. Like in the beginning of the game, you have pretty basic things like bridges and farms, things like that everybody understands. And then as it gets weirder, or as time goes on, you kind of get these things like there's a hook that can grab clouds or drawbridges or like, houseboats, things like that. But you kind of have to have that base knowledge of the game already to be able to play with those, because if they're just all thrown at you in the beginning.
Oh yeah, that would be overwhelming.
Yeah, because you wouldn't know, okay, how do I even use a houseboat if I don't know how to use houses? Something like that. I like that aspect of kind of general or a slow progression between games and something to build towards as well. So even if you lose, you're like, okay, well, I have a bit of karma, I can unlock something new. Maybe that'll help me in the future.
So what are you the most proud of when you look at the whole journey?
I'm most proud of the accomplishment of completing. I'm really proud that it's unique, that it's different content and like catching people's eyes.
Yeah.
I think that's something that Kainga did really well. Was because the creatures are so weird and the architecture is interesting, that like seeing that there's a house on top of a giant ant creature makes people wonder like, ooh, what is going on here? And I think that's what helped the success of Kainga quite a bit.
And that you can ride on random snakes and other animals, you can tame them, and it's like, wait, what is this? Or like
the crabs coming out of the ground, things like that. So there's a lot of like visually impressive things. So I think my advice for game developers is try to make something that's fun to look at as well as playing. Because the way people see games these days is in like a 15 or 5 second clip, right? It'll just be something small that will get people to wonder, okay, what is that? And get them to dive in and check out more and see more of it. So I think, like I said before, that's kind of how I caught the eyes of publishers, was with these small, impressive GIFs and videos. Allowing for that is really good, which is kind of hard depending on the game that you're trying to make. Like I don't know, every game should have an impressive moment.
Did you have a certain target audience in mind, or was it really because you say like you were inspired by your one of your favorite games from like your past? Did you have that as really like, oh, I want to kind of recreate that in my way, or was it more like, oh, I want to target these people with this game?
Originally, it was the second one where I wanted to recreate an old game. But then as I started working on it, I wanted to create a game for myself, my own audience, which my audience is people who work but want to play city builders but don't have the time.
Yeah, it's a short run.
Yeah,
that's true.
Because I love city builder games, and I didn't, sometimes I just can't. They're like 7-hour games sometimes where you just keep going and going and going. And I wanted something shorter. I wanted something like 30 minutes. So I found myself playing a lot of roguelites where you could play for 30 minutes or an hour and then be done. And then the next day, because I got stuff to do. I'm a busy man working my daily job. So I thought I wanted to create a city builder that allowed for that. So I kind of designed something that would facilitate that.
And your daily job, you mean like the development of the game, or?
Before, because I was working full time as a marketing manager, actually.
Oh, you know how to market.
Yeah, well, I hated it, so I don't know how good I am at it, but I understand the logic behind it, I guess.
So that helps you with development as well, I guess.
Yeah, and it helped me with like copywriting, things like that, like being able to know what people want to see.
So what do people want to see?
They want their questions answered before they get to ask their question, is the way I kind of imagine it. When the salesperson is trying to sell something, they're telling them that this would solve a solution or solve a problem that the buyer doesn't know that they have. So my game, I guess, this is getting real heavy into the marketing side, but I guess my game is like I said, it's trying to create that bite-sized city builder that has a unique play style every time you play it. But this is a problem most people don't know that they have. People love city builders, but they don't have time. So I'm trying to squeeze myself into that gap.
Okay, city builders for people that don't have time. So is that also why there is no multiplayer? or is that just to save time for yourself?
There's no multiplayer because I don't know how. I don't know the limitations. It was kind of, as I was learning game development, I just said single player only because multiplayer brings in a lot of other problems like servers and then connectivity. And then, there's a whole nother issue of balance, which with this amount of RNG, if people are fighting against each other, then they're like, well, that wasn't fair because, you got archers and I didn't get anything.
Yeah.
But I'm looking into it actually at the moment. I'm thinking of ways where you can balance the technologies can be the same for both players, and also cooperative. I think would be fun as well.
Oh, okay. Against the enemy.
Yeah, or trying to accomplish a goal together, and then you have two different villages, and you can trade with each other or fight each other if you want. But it's a bit of a struggle because the game wasn't built with that in mind from the start. Obviously, I'm looking into weighing the possibilities, basically, seeing what it would take and seeing if it's worth pursuing.
So with the festivals, are there limits on your festivals?
No, you can do them multiple times, but they take time to recharge.
Well, for example, I couldn't I could not do my apple pie, and don't know if it's a bug or whatsoever, but is that maybe because I had a festival before, or how do I know when I can re-festival? Is that...
Well, if you had a festival on the fire, like the bonfire festival, you can put on the campfire. Then if it was there on the fire, then you wouldn't have been able to place the pie. But if the festival had already run and finished, then you should be able to place it again. So yeah, so these are the kinds of issues I run into
okay,
all the time. Or what if it floods and then your campfire gets doused? Then can you place, and I can't place the pie on top of a doused campfire. Does the pie still run if there's no fire under the fireplace? Anyways, these are my daily issues.
Okay, so and the water rising is it going up, later on, some games have it, it's really rising, or is it just only that part of the game that you kind of know that is most risky to get underwater?
At the moment, it's just the sea level. I am working at the moment on map modifiers, which is kind of a additional way that the map is affected. So I'm looking at a rising tide map modifier that kind of goes up and up. The problem is that people drown very easily. Nobody can swim. So as soon as it gets, neck height, then everyone's dead.
Yeah, that was with one gameplay when at the first 10 minutes I just randomly I got attacked by sea level rising. I was like, oh wait, I should not have placed my houses here on my campfire. Okay, yes.
But it goes away, right?
Yeah, but at the start of the game you are okay, just do a rerun, right?
Depending on the house type, they could collapse. But then again, there's other houses that get bonuses from being flooded. The floods replenish the clay resources. So a fire will regrow into reeds as well. So I tried to create a system where the disasters are bad initially, but when you learn about the world, then you can use the disasters to your advantage.
And
so
you see them coming on the timeline.
So and you can even call them with some festivals, create rain. And a lot of players are like, why would I want to create rain? It just causes problems. But then later on you realize, there's a house where you get free food if you create rain. And then it creates this cycle of making the player feel like they're clever or they've broken the game somehow,
Do we already have a Wikipedia, or do we all need to find out all those stuff by ourselves?
There's the encyclopedia in the game. It only shows what you've unlocked as well. So it kind of tries to keep it a little bit simple.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of the sift tree, but then kind of, for example, when I noticed, I had stone and that suddenly makes something new, or the warehouses with stone as well, for example. So that also creates
so when you get a synergy like that, it's recorded and it'll explain why you got the synergy that you did.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's kind of stored in your database, basically, of your game.
Yeah, and the creatures you kind of bump into, you can learn about them as well. I wanted to make an encyclopedia. This is one of the things I almost cut, but didn't, because it was a lot of work to do that.
Yes.
But I think, like you said, there's so much information that people want to know that can't find. So I thought it's really necessary to put it in.
So you worked a lot on your world building.
Yeah. And like you said, there's a lot of strange things that don't make sense, like the stone soup.
Well, I think it makes sense.
It makes sense in the context of the world. Yeah, like there's a windmill that pushes clouds away. When you think about it, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. So it kind of makes sense in the context of the world, which is exactly the balance I'm going for. That the whole game is a story that's being told. So there's like exaggerations and things like that inside the game, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. How did you make your own art, by the way?
Yeah, I did make my own art. I used an iPad for the 2D art, Blender for the 3D art, for the rigging and animation. A lot of the animation is what's called procedural animation. Like the walker walks on the terrain. There's no animation set. It just kind of puts its feet where the feet need to go. And the character animation is drawn in giant sprite sheets. The hardest part was calculating which sprite to play, depending on where the camera is, which direction the character is going, and everything. There's a really cool, complex system behind it that sets the player's colors and clothing and things like that, which is, so you have these like overlays, you can have hats on top of different outfits and things like that, which I think I'm really happy about. I think it comes across well.
Yeah, it also changed your starting color. I just changed my hat. I was like, oh, this looks nicer, but then I was like, oh no, but I don't want that my flags are now suddenly orange-red, and I had before blue, so it's kind of like, oh wait, that was not what I wanted. I just wanted to have a cooler finger, and now changing everything.
He does everything, even the selection colors and like the rings around your campfire.
Yeah, but like the flags, you need to kind of put new flags, so you're kind of how you call them, your braves, right? Your braves are understand that they can use the resources out of that area, right?
Right. Yeah.
But if you place, like, for example, landmarks or that kind of stuff, you also kind of place these kind of things, right? Or is it really that every time you have a new area, you need to place new flags?
All the area around your campfire is claimed by you, including all the resources. This is another unique thing about the game is there's no stockpiles, there's no resource.
Well, there is one technology for keeping your storage.
Yeah. There's always exceptions. Yes. But yeah, there's actually two types of storage. But for the most part, you don't have like the spreadsheets that a lot of city builders have, like, oh, we have 150 wood or things like that. You have to go out and find it. When they need the resource, they'll go get it. And like you said, when you run out, you have to claim new land, and that is how you get more resources for the most part. You can expand your radius, and the more land you claim, the more your neighbors will be upset. The ante goes up, so the events will get more serious. That's to try to slow you down from claiming the whole world and cutting everything down. Because a lot of games, you start out and the first thing you do is just cut all the trees, just cut everything, take all the resources. So I wanted to kind of go against that a little bit, where you only take what you need when you need it.
And it's kind of replenishing itself, right, with all the events. Oh, so and how did you do the audio?
Oh, the audio I did not do myself. Okay. So the music is done by Some Point Sound, which are a duo in New York. And they're great. I'm really happy with the music. It's the mood of kind of lightheartedness with a lot of mystery and surprise. I'm really happy with them. So if you're looking for music, I recommend Some Point Sound to any game developers out there. The other sounds were done by a guy, Clayton Tapp in Canada. And I really like his sounds as well. They're just there's a lot of depth to them. Like the music, it fits perfectly, and they fit great with each other as well. I knew from the beginning I wasn't going to do audio. It's not my field of expertise. There's no way I could create sounds or create music. I mean, there's a way, but everything else, UI, animations, art, design, programming is all done by myself.
But 300 technologies, it's quite a lot.
Yeah. How do I say this? It's not as important to have a lot of content as it is to have good content
for sure
in the game. Retrospectively, I could have cut things back a little bit and focused more on that initial game loop, but it's just so hard to work on tutorials and things. Which is some of the most important things to work on. But as a developer, I find it difficult to forget what I already know about the game.
Yeah, because you think that everyone would know exactly what is happening. But when you first enter it, it's like, oh, wait, what is happening around here?
Yeah, exactly. Even things like, you know, the fact that the units, the Braves, they get the resources on their own. They don't need to be told to go get resources. I always forget that new players won't know that.
Yeah. Like most RTS, you need to say, oh, go here, have wood. Some has wood, some does this, some this, that. It's more like they're just going around and just do their stuff. And then sometimes you're like, wait, why is this not doing? Oh, wait, I need to have this person out of his house.
Yeah, it's that communication back and forth between me, the developer, and the player. Try to get them to understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I think you did well in that.
I think I hit a lot of marks, but I think some of them were missed. But I think that's okay.
Oh yeah, I always ask like, what is your advice for starters in the indie studio, or like starters for solo development at this time, because it's going to be very challenging.
Yeah, it is very challenging to be a solo developer. It's more challenging than you think it is. Yeah, it is, because there's so much more that goes on besides the development. Don't even see, like localization or like porting to Steam or Epic or running a business, taxes, things like that. Kind of a nightmare to deal with as a solo person. I guess my advice would be know what you want and stick to it, and then follow through. I think a lot of failure comes from jumping around. The grass is always greener feeling of, ooh, you know, that looks pretty good and this is new and trending. Maybe I should go in this direction, and then changing back and then changing over here, and then nothing gets completed. The reason why my game made it out the door is because I just stuck to it and continued, knew the vision from the beginning, understood everything that was going to be made, and then just did it. Kind of one step at a time. I think lists really help as well. I make huge amounts of lists and then cross them off when they're done, and it just feels very satisfying to know that, you know, stuff is getting done.
Yes. Especially, I think for me, I like to still do the list, like not on digital thing, because like clicking on digital stuff, it feels less of accomplishment. I still just write down in my notebook, like, and then you just cross it and check it, and you're like, yes, I did I did my stuff.
Exactly. I have pages and pages of crossed off to-do lists or bug fixes and things like that, which is great, I think. So I have like big lists, like, you know, month-long lists, and then, you know, daily, hourly lists. So I think that really helps. Sometimes it feels like you're just spinning your wheels. You're like, okay, I've been developing for months and I feel like I'm making no progress. Even though truth is that you have been making progress, but you're making it at such a slow pace that you don't actually see the before and after. So those lists kind of help you mentally complete a lot of the tasks and understand your progress.
I agree. I mean, I'm also a list person, so so
you know the value.
I know the value of lists. Nice. Yeah. Thank you so much for all your advice. Do you have some last words before we are going to say goodbye? What do you want to share with the rest of the viewers?
I think a lot of AAA games are disappointing people recently, so I think there's going to be a big push for indie games in the next couple of years.
Even more. Nice. That's always good. I love it, and I also think, and I can see on you and all the others that I interview, that you have just a passion for what you're creating, and I think that's really cool. And you are sharing something new and bring something new to the Steam store. So thank you so much for that. If anyone has questions, you can either just go privately to Erik to stalk him, or of course you can ask questions which are interesting below in the comments. We will always come back to you. Wow, that was a lot of information. I hope you really enjoyed. I did, and I'm excited to also announce that next month I'm going to discuss another RTS game with an interesting monster. Yes, because we are going to build on a monster and going to see if we can also survive this RTS experience. So if you're interested in that and you don't want to miss, well, please subscribe, ring the notification, and if you're nice, give a like. So this was Acreates. Create more, enjoy more. See you in the next one. Bye bye.